In working with clay, there's a couple of skills that we all have to have and remember as we're working with things. The first one is learning how to what we call score and slip. It's how we make pieces stick together in clay. For example, if you take and make a snowman, like with balls like this, I'm going to make a snowman. Okay, like that. And let me do a third one. Like that. Okay, so I have a snowman, but watch. He comes apart really easily, so that when he's fired, he's not going to stick together and he will just fall. Whoops, there goes the snowman. So in order to make him really stay together and so that he doesn't fall apart from firing, we're going to do something called scoring. So I'm going to take something like a little fork. We're going to make little scratches in the clay like this. And then we're going to take some water and put it between like this. And we're going to put some scratches on the other piece, just a few, doesn't need a lot. And then we're going to kind of work them together a little bit, like we're just kind of squiggle them together. Okay, now watch. It's hard for them to come apart, and they don't come apart easily. You really have to pull to get them apart, so that they will stay together during a firing. If you really want it to be real secure, what you do is you take and you work the two pieces together a little bit on the outside edge. Can you see how I'm kind of just smoothing those edges together? That would really make our snowman really stick together well. So that's how we score and slip. That'll make your piece really solid so it doesn't come apart. How secure it is, it just wants to stay together. And it'll stay that way after it goes through the kiln process as well. The next thing we need to learn is how big to make the things that we add onto our little sculptures. For example, if we add a hat to our little snowman, let me make a little hat here quickly. We're going to make him a wide-brimmed sun hat like this. Does this look like a wide-brimmed sun hat? Okay, does that look like a hat to you? So don't make your edges too skinny. Don't make them like this. This is too thin because it'll break really easy. So you want to make your edges a little bit thicker, more like this. So can you see that? It's a little thicker. Not skinny like this one over here, because that's too thin, but kind of a little bit more chunky like that so that it doesn't break really easily. And then what we want to do, of course, is score. Score both pieces, put a little water in there. Both pieces. We'll put his hat on. And let's say now I want to add a feather to his hat. Now we need to make it a little thicker. Remember, we want to make things as big as our thumb if we can. Can you see how big that is? As big as our thumb. So his feather is going to be a nice chunky fat feather. And remember, score and slip. It's kind of hard because it's a little bit small. Like this, score and slip. Okay, see his feather? I'm going to kind of work it on a little bit. We're going to kind of smear it on a little bit and make it really connect well. And then we can kind of shape it more like a little feather, but remember, we want to keep it nice and thick. Like that. And then I'm going to take and make some feather marks in it. Can you see how the feather marks are in there? See how they made the feather marks? But that's a nice chunky feather in the snowman's hat. Now if I would make a feather that was really skinny and long like this and stick it on, it's going to, as soon as it dries and it goes into the kiln, and even when after it's fired, it's going to break really easy. It's just going to fall off. Whereas this one is nice and sturdy and it's going to survive. So that's how we put things onto our figures. And another rule for clay would be when we have a big piece of clay like this. When we put a big piece of clay like this in kiln, it's going to break because the hot air can't get to the middle of this big piece of clay. For example, if you look at some of Margaret Hudson's sculptures, like this little bear, it's all solid, but if you turn him upside down, what's that? there's a hole up its middle, which lets the hot air get to the middle of the clay. So when we make big, thick things like this bear, okay, this is kind of an imitation of a bear here. If it's a solid piece, we want to be sure and take a pencil or another object like this, or I'm using the handle of a brush. We want to poke a hole up through the middle, just like this, see? That gives us a hole in the middle. And that lets the hot air get to the middle of these big, thick things and they won't blow up. So we have the scoring and slipping, which we did with our snowman here. We had keeping things thicker, usually about as thick as your thumb so that they don't break. And then we have putting a hole in the middle of our thick sculptures. Those are our 3 rules for working with clay. All right, thank you.